Yes, so I'm delighted to be joined by Colin Furze, who is a YouTuber, has just hit 10 million subscribers, which is one hell of an achievement. Um, an inventor, who does kind of engineering videos. You've done things like making Wolverine claws, an underground bunker, a flamethrower, a hoverboard. I mean, I guess the obvious place to start is what made you decide to start putting stuff on YouTube?
I actually used to make videos when I was a bit younger. I used to ride BMX bikes, so naturally you used to buy video cameras and try and make videos of you and your mates doing stuff. So that's kind of where the video editing and filming skills come from. And then as you get a bit older, you start messing around and doing bits and bobs. Stuff got filmed, and I used to like put like a VHS tape together, and you get like passed around the neighborhood and whatnot. And then obviously when YouTube came about, someone's like, oh, there's this, website where you can upload stuff to for free. Obviously, that was the main thing. It was free and anyone can go and see it. And that was kind of like the next obvious step. And then it just kind of escalated from there. I mean, at the start, it wasn't necessarily engineering videos. It was just having a bit of fun because, YouTube back in its early days, nobody really knew what it was going to turn into. So, and then I started, as I was fizzling out of BMX, because I started to get a bit older, and then, you do, don't you? You start to hurt yourself a bit more, basically. Job, more responsibility. So chucking yourself onto ramps and stuff wasn't really the best idea. And so I started making bits and bobs and various things, and I had this goal of trying to make this world's biggest bonfire, and it all just kind of slowly morphed into what I'm doing now.
Because I think it was about 12 years ago that you put up, what was it? The Wheel of Death, was it?
Yeah, the Wall of Death.
Sorry, the Wall of Death, of course. Yes.
Just there.
Was that the first video that went really viral? Because I saw that it got tons of views and tons of attention.
Yeah, it was the first video that went viral because back in the day, the YouTube homepage, everyone used to see the same homepage, which I quite liked actually. So if you logged on from the UK, there was, a video that somebody at YouTube had picked, and then it would slowly move its ranks down. And that one got picked to go at the top. So there was also a massive audience, because everyone in the UK would see it. And also it was quite handy because it was one of the first videos that I actually made with YouTube in mind. And there was the build process, there was a building it, there was a testing it, and there was a riding it. Whereas beforehand, I'd have just made something and just filmed the result sort of thing. There was no build process. And then that's kind of really where it all started, or you could see that there was a bit of a future in it. It's also where the shirt and tie was born, because the moped I used to go around the Wall of Death on, I used to think it looked like something an old man would ride. So every time I rode it, I used to dress up as some old bloke with a shirt and tie on, tweed trousers, jacket or whatever. I still had this shirt and tie on around there, and then everyone's like, he doesn't need a helmet, he's got his safety tie on. And then that was the uniform stuck. Then I thought, well, I might as well wear this all the time now. And then that was a kind of groundwork for the channel, really. And I don't know if there was an AdSense program then or not, whether there was any money in it. That come a little bit later because I was in it. I was on YouTube right from the very beginning, like 2006. Yeah. So I can hold my hand up and say I wasn't in it for the money. Whereas people these days look, I want to be a YouTuber, sort of thing. There's a different goal for some people now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there came a point presumably where it became like your full-time job. After how long was that?
That was 2011. That happened, and it was like a perfect storm, really, because the recession of 2009 or whatever was obviously starting to bite a bit more. I was a plumber beforehand. We'd been reduced down to like 4 days a week, and then Sky had contacted me about presenting a TV show.
Yeah,
and I ended up getting that sort of thing, and I'd said to my employer, can I nip off and do this TV show sort of thing? And he was quite happy for me to do that because obviously they were struggling for work anyway, so one less person to worry about was good. So I ended up going to do that, and I basically just never went back to plumbing because I went into the TV show. He halfway through I was doing it because it was only supposed to take like 6 weeks, but it ended up taking like 9 months. Textbook telly. It was a complete lash up. I mean, I know now from dealing, a lot with television and stuff that all the nonsense they tell everyone never happened.
Well, was that the thing with Tom Scott? Was it? I think I very vaguely remember it. But, what was it called?
Gadget Geeks, it was called.
Yeah, I remember watching a couple of episodes like when it originally came out. I kind of vaguely remember. I mean, like in terms of kind of income, obviously you got AdSense, presumably, to advertising. So you get sponsorship as well, don't you? I mean, is kind of one more important than the other, or is there kind of a bit of both?
It depends really. I mean, I don't. You do get the sponsored videos, and
Yeah.
that was something that come in a bit later because originally it was just AdSense, and depending on how many views, and I mean, you can't, you never knew whether it was gonna pay or not. So it was a bit of a strange thing, really, and it is for anyone that wants to do it full time has probably got to put a year and a half into it without really breaking even, sort of thing, because it takes so long to build up to a level where it would pay for itself. I mean, it depends what you do, because unfortunately for something like I do, I have to buy stuff, I have to build something, so there's an expense. Whereas if you're a gamer or somebody that just vlogs and does in your chat, just sits in your bedroom and talking, you've technically got no overheads, but then it's a tougher market to crack because it's a lot harder. But yeah, you get your sponsored videos, you get like TV appearances and bits and bobs. It can come from all sorts of angles, but there's no set pattern to it each year, if you know what I mean. So different things come in fits and spats. I'll have like times where there's constant clip shows being made, like science clip shows, and because I tick a lot of boxes on that, you'll get a massive wave of them, and then you won't hear of any for like nearly a year or whatever. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, really. I mean, luckily enough, I'm at a size now where it kind of something turns up eventually, if you know what I mean. But you're starting out, it's a bit harder.
I mean, you must have, if you went professional in 2011, as in kind of full time on the YouTube, you must have been kind of amongst the first wave of professional YouTubers.
Yeah.
I mean, how did people react when you said, my job is a YouTuber?
I never used to bother most of the time. I just said I was a plumber. It depends how old. Depends how old the person was that you were talking to. Like if you went to a party or a wedding, and there was somebody like in their 40s or whatever, I'd just tell them I was a plumber and did it in the spare time. Whereas if it was somebody a bit younger, then they'd have some idea. And then there's this grey area in the middle, like the late 20s, 30s sort of thing, which sort of got it. But I mean, it was so new then that people didn't really understand it. And some people still don't now. So some people still think I work for Sky, the TV show, because they can quantify that. They're like, "Oh, you're still doing stuff for Sky?" And I'm like, "I've not done anything for Sky for years." Do you know what I mean? That was ages ago. But if that's what helps you, understand what I do, then fair enough. Whatever.
Go for that, yeah. I mean, like one thing a lot of YouTubers have told me is that they're having problems, particularly in the last couple of years, with getting ad revenue, and more because the kind of Google's tightened up its requirements. So a lot of stuff's being demonetized, especially if it's kind of slightly controversial stuff. I mean, even some of it, in my view, not that controversial stuff. I mean, is that an issue you come across? Have you had an issue with being demonetized?
No, there's only a very handful of videos of mine that have ever been, well, not demonetized, but have been put ads restricted on them. And that was the one where I got burnt, which was quite graphic.
Yeah.
So that's acceptable. And then there was one last year where I made a machine gun briefcase from the Kingsman. And because that's firearms related, that one got demonetized. But then there's others which I think are far worse. I mean, like my spinning belt of knives, which is bloody lethal. Not a problem. But then I don't ever swear as well, because if you do swear in a video, I think that restricts it immediately. And I had one video when we filmed the Wall of Death being burnt. The one we were talking about earlier.
I watched that this morning, yeah.
And I had to re-edit that last minute because when I uploaded it, it got demonetized. And there was something I said like, "Oh, there's a bloody because there was a penis sprayed on the side of it." And I was talking about a TV show. Oh yeah, I was saying, TV shows always used to come and then they used to struggle to film it, so they didn't have the dick in shot, and that was enough for it to get demonetized. And I hadn't have experienced it before because I normally keep my language completely normal because I know that families and dads and mums sit there watching my videos with their kids, so I've always kept it. If there is any jokes or anything, I'll make sure that it's like if the kid asks like, well, what did he mean by that? That it would the dad just go, "Oh, he's just talking about his cat or something,"
yeah,
or something like that. So I've always been been quite cautious with that. So generally, I haven't really had any problems. So,
I mean, do you have kind of bureaucratic issues at all? I mean, I was thinking specifically about things like the AT-AT Walker, some of the bigger projects, or the bunker. I mean, do you have to get planning permission for those? Is it kind of quite a complicated process, or is it not as bad as people might think?
I had to get planning permission for the bunker, but I did that retrospectively, which is obviously quite a risk. But luckily enough, there was one person from the council who was quite helpful in the sense that he was like, don't do this, don't do that, do this, and you'll be fine. Whereas the guy from planning was just put the application in and we'll have a look at it. And I was like, yeah, but I'm going to build this. You know, if you want it to be, you know, what don't you want to see? And they just wouldn't involve in conversation, which you kind of understand because they don't want you turning around afterwards and go, well, you said I could do that. So things like the AT-AT stuff, it's temporary. Nothing's left standing for weeks and months on end. It gets built, it gets filmed, and then it disappears. So there's not really any planning or authorities to get involved, really.
I mean, this may be complete rubbish, but I read somewhere on the internet that your bunker is now worth more than your house. I don't know if that's true or not.
I think recently I did the tour, and what I said was, because I asked an estate agent, like, you know, does this add value to the house?
Yeah.
And he said, well, in the past, when we've sold houses with unique rooms or something on them which isn't normal, it's better to sell the room with the house attached to it rather than the house with the room. He says, because there's loads of people that are willing to buy a 3-bed semi in your area, but not many people would pay the extra 50, 60 grand or whatever it is to have the bunker. Whereas if you find someone who needs that space, then they'll pay the money. So you kind of had to find the person that wants the bunker rather than this is a house and, oh, look, it's got this as well. Yeah. So if you said like, you know, like an artist or someone who wanted to do like a home recording studio, they'd probably pay a lot more for that because you can be in it at like 3 o'clock in the morning with music as loud as you want and nobody can hear it. So that's maybe it may have come from that and got slightly twisted.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's worth though. It's one of those things, isn't it? I'd never sell it. I'd never sell the place, so I don't know if I'll ever find out. And I suppose
do you kind of use the bunker a lot for like your own stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I go and watch the Formula One down there. My mate used it as a band practice room. We used to before we had all this lockdown nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does get used, you know. And obviously, there's some of the things I've made are all down there. It's a bit of a museum, really now. So.
I mean, you've done so many projects. I mean, have there ever been any way you've kind of felt actually this is pretty dangerous? As in, maybe have I gone too far this time? Does that kind of make sense?
The 360 swing was interesting because that wasn't sponsored or anything, so there was nobody asking me to do it. It was just one of my ideas that I'd come up with, and a bit like, you know how like you chuck a tent on the floor and you look at it and you think, oh, this isn't very big. You put it up and get in it and you're like, it's all right. And it was a little bit like that. We kind of got the longest bits of steel that we could to make the triangles, to make the frame. And then you put them on the grass and you think, and then you stood them up and you looked up and you were like, Christ, and that's halfway. So when I'm upside down, I'm twice as high as that. And that was a little bit nerve-wracking because, I mean, it was actually really easy and was completely fine. But like if you go to Alton Towers, you get on the ride knowing that someone's designed it, everything's been stress tested, and you just presume it's good. Whereas when you make something yourself, you haven't got that because it's like, well, I've welded that up and I think I've welded it up okay, but if I haven't, it's me that's gonna know about it. So that was a bit worrying. But other than that, I mean, there's certain things that, you know, I suppose the belt of knives was quite dangerous. There's the fire stuff can be, but generally I'm not that fussed by it. I've done it enough times with various different things that I'm quite comfortable with how to do it. So, but yeah, so I don't know really. It depends because some people have got a different perception of danger, haven't they? And no doubt mine is probably a bit higher than most other people's.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's the process between? I'm sure it varies hugely between projects, but kind of like between having an idea and kind of the completed projects. I mean, does it start as a kind of you design it all on paper and then you get the materials and get people in? How does it work?
Sometimes I'll have a little bit of a scribble on a piece of paper just to see, how to do certain bits. Sometimes I'll literally just go and get some, it depends what I'm building, obviously, but I might have a lot of the components lying around anyway, or things that could nearly do it. And then you'll have a little bit of a play. I'll normally build like a prototype or something first that I won't even bother filming, because obviously the filming side of things massively slows you down. So there's no point filming your very early test ones, although some people would love to see that, and as interesting it is, it just drags the process out. And if you make something which is rubbish and wrong, and you filmed intricately, you made it, you've just wasted your time, basically. I mean, I'll show it on the video. I said, oh, I made this one, but it didn't work. But, you know, so I'll have a little play around sort of thing, try and finesse it. And then the one you build on camera is the one that works. But I don't even always do that. There's a lot of them. The one that is on camera is the first one I've ever made. So it depends how unsure I am if something's going to work, or whether there's something which I want to kind of test first, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, do you have like a cameraman when you do this, or you just kind of, you know, film it all yourself?
No, it's mostly just me. I mean, I've got a mate who comes and helps me, Rick. He's like my second pair of hands, but he very rarely films anything. He's a bit shit.
Yeah. That's quite a big, I mean, for a channel of, you know, 10 million subscribers, I mean, filming all yourself as well as doing all the engineering, that's a lot of work.
It is. I did dabble last year with having somebody come and film one of the videos, but it just felt wrong, because I think things that people watch me for is they feel like they're in the shed with me. And as soon as the camera starts moving around, they know somebody else is there that they can't see. And then that makes them think, well, what else is happening that we can't see? And then it starts to feel more like a TV show and less like an interaction with myself. So I mean, he was a nice old boy and he was brilliant at what he did, but it just, the end result was just something that just felt alien, and I just thought, no, I don't like this. So, and then after that, I experimented with him doing a bit of the editing to save me time. But again, when he doesn't live locally, so we were like transferring stuff coming back, and it just slowed everything down. I was like, I must just do this myself again, just stick to doing it. So I mean, it does slow the production process down, because, you know, I am having to do everything, but it's what I've always done. So it's not like somebody else used to do it and now I'm having to do it all. So, and then of course with lockdown, it's not changed anything for me. So as long as I can get the bits and the materials, I've just carried on as normal.
I mean, so you may not want to answer, in which case no problem. But what are you kind of working on at the moment? What's the current main project?
Well, we're doing a live stream on Thursday for the NHS YouTubers. So I'm part of that. I don't know if they've announced that yet or not. So so I'm messing around doing that. I've got like this NHS sign I'm making with these big fire cannons and stuff. So I'm doing that, but also I might be dabbling some Back to the Future-esque stuff.
I mean, as I say, I mean, you've obviously done so many different projects. I mean, kind of which was like the toughest one, I guess, which presented the most difficulties?
Well, in terms of scale, the bunker was quite nerve-wracking, because obviously I destroyed my garden. So there was a point where it's like, we're doing this now, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? As soon as Tom come in with the digger and started chomping it up, it was kind of like, we've got to see it through. You can't chicken out. The TIE fighter was quite interesting, because that was just a massive hunk of steel. And there was a couple of moments in that where we were trying to put the wing on, and we couldn't quite get it in place. And then it was like, well, you can't pick any of this up. So we've got like, you know, JCBs and stuff struggling to maneuver this thing around. So that was challenging in that sense. Obviously the 360 swing was, you know, daunting to have the first go on it, but ultimately turned out okay. And then sometimes there's like the ones with deadlines, like this, you know, like the land speeder, when we made that, and that had to be ready for Children in Need night. You know, there was many times when I was worried that wasn't going to get finished. So, and stuff like that. But generally, I mean, I don't know, you just keep muddling on, don't you?
I mean, if you had, I mean, maybe not like unlimited budget, but if you had like a greatly expanded budget, and you had kind of as much room as you want, what kind of thing would you like to work on?
I don't know, because I don't really work like that. I try and do stuff within the means I've got, because I think that's what makes it relatable to people. I mean, it is a struggle as you go on, because I mean, I've got things like, you know, like the 3D printers, the CNC plasma cutter and stuff like that are expensive equipment, which most people can't afford. So that does start to go off into that no expense spare realm sort of thing. But in terms of scale, it is nice if I can. I always say I want to try and make it in that shed, because that's a shed that everybody can ascertain to have. So if it all comes out that, everyone can look at everything I do and think, well, actually, we could do that sort of thing. Take it from there. So yeah, so that's kind of how I look at it, really. So if somebody just gives me loads of money, I'll make something cheap and keep the rest.
Not disagreeing with you. So I guess, because obviously, I guess as you kind of hinting at, but one of the the beauties of your channel is it's just like a sort of standard suburban house with like an bat walker sitting out the front. I mean, do you think that kind of restriction actually almost makes you more creative, helps you in some ways, rather than having like a huge warehouse or whatever where you can do whatever you want?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it means you have to think round things. Do you know what I mean? And it's surprising how you always do manage to think round them. And also if I do make anything, it has to be, and I need to take it anywhere, like the screw tank, which I've just made. It's not just making it, you have to make sure you can get it out the gate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or through the garage sort of things. You can't make anything so big that it's stuck in the garden. It has to be able to, exit the place. So, and then you have to be able to handle it as well as humans, because you can't always get diggers and stuff. I can't get a forklift outside the shed. So the screw tank had to be made in sections that you could unbolt, take through the gate, chuck in the van, and then build up at the other end. And the same with the swing. The 360 swing was all in bits. It all just, it's in a container now, all on the floor in pieces. But again, you couldn't weld all the massive bits together, because then you'd never be able to do anything with it. You'd have to chop it up afterwards. So,
yeah. I mean, have you ever thought about kind of trying to sell any of this stuff? I mean, I sometimes see people commenting on your YouTube channel saying like, I'd pay X $1,000 for the flamethrower or for the Wolverine claws or something. Is that something you'd ever consider, or is that just not really your?
I don't know. I mean, I get so emotionally attached to everything after I've made it. I never want to get rid of it. And then also, like, you get people like yourselves, like TV, companies that want to come and interview you, and they want the stuff in the background. They want to see things.
Yeah.
I've plugged it all. Then you can't do that. So, but I mean, I don't think I could sell anyone Wolverine claws anyway. I think if I sold them Wolverine claws and they went and slashed someone to bits, so that liability would fall on that. Yeah.
I mean, you must, as I say, obviously you kind of do this in like a kind of suburban area. I mean, presumably, are your neighbours just really, really understanding, like really, really great neighbours? Are there ever any issues where we're going to build a massive, great, like habitat walker? Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, they don't like the tall things, and I try and keep the noise down as much as possible. So, it swings and roundabouts really. So
I guess the bunker helps with the noise if you can just kind of go in there. Or would you work in the bunker, or was it just in the shed?
Well, this is the thing, you see, the bunker's not. There is no workshop in the bunker. Whereas, I mean, I would like to do another one actually, which is a workshop. The only problem is if I did consider making the bunker the workshop, but then it's getting stuff in it.
Yeah,
you've got like if I made. I mean, there's a lot of like the screw tank. It's a beautiful room, and you'd never get it out. So because you've got to go back up that blooming shaft sort of thing. So you kind of end up with a different set of problems then. But I mean, in terms of noise and everything, it's fantastic. The ventilation system would have to be a bit better. So when you grind in, it could clear the air out a lot quicker than what it would do at the moment. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
I mean, I don't know if you've seen them, but I've seen kind of a few YouTube videos which are kind of almost like imitations. So people kind of seeing what you're doing and trying to go along the same lines. I mean, is that something you encourage? Do you watch this stuff? I mean, do you kind of want to inspire people to do it themselves, or is it more of a solo project?
Well, I think it's quite good if you see people trying to take and copy what you do, because it obviously means that whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But I suppose in terms of what I do on the internet, I mean, I was one of the original ones, so I suppose I've had a head start on everyone. I don't think there's anyone else who does anything like I do that's got a bigger channel. So I've been the top of the pile for years now. But like I said, probably that's because I started earlier. I probably should have more followers than what I've got, but I'm only one person. But yeah, if I see people trying to do the same thing, sort of thing, I mean, it's all good. It's a compliment, really, isn't it? So
yeah. I mean, just one final question. I mean, kind of going forward, is the plan to kind of stick with the current strategy? So, obviously just do a channel and do a little bit of TV here and there. Or, I mean, would you be looking to kind of change or, scale up or anything? What's the kind of the plan going forward?
I don't really want to scale up in terms of get bigger workshops and stuff
Yeah.
because all that. I mean, it'd be nice to have an underground one or something, but it would still be where I am. In television, I'll entertain. If the biggest problem with TV is if they ever want you to be the person that makes stuff on screen, it's the worst job in the world. If they don't give you enough time, there's too many people making stupid decisions. You've got the channel to please, you've got everyone else. I mean, the health and safety, the risk assessment, it just doesn't work. Every time I've had a production company involved with anything, it just doesn't work. So I'm quite happy to be on TV as a judge or as somebody like that to do with the show. But as soon as they want me to be like, oh, this is Colin and he's going to go off and build it, forget it.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. So.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. It's been, I say, really interesting talking to you. So thanks so much for your time.